Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 5, Patterns of Social Inequality and Exclusion. We are continuing our topic, Social Inequalities, and topic is Prejudices. Refer to preconceived opinions or attitudes held by members of one group towards another. The word literally means prejudgment, that is, an opinion formed in advance of any familiarity with the subject before considering any available evidence. A prejudiced person's preconceived views are often based on hearsay rather than on direct evidence and are resistant to change even in the face of new information. Prejudice may be either positive or negative. Although the word is generally used for negative prejudgments, it can also apply to favorable prejudgment. For example, a person may be prejudiced in favor of members of his or her own caste or group, and without any evidence believe them to be superior to members of other castes and groups. Prejudices are often grounded in stereotypes, fixed and inflexible characterization of a group of people. Stereotypes are often applied to ethnic and racial groups and to women. In a country such as India, which was colonized for a long time, many of these stereotypes are partially colonial creations. Some communities were characterized as martial races, some others are effeminate or crowdly, yet others are untrustworthy. In both English and Indian fictional writings, we often encounter an entire group of people classified as lazy or cunning. It may indeed be true that some individuals are sometimes lazy or cunning, brave or cowardly, but such a general statement is true of individuals in every group. Even for such individuals, it is not true all the time. The same individual may be both lazy and hardworking at different times. Stereotypes fix whole groups into single, homogeneous categories. They refuse to recognize the variation across individuals and across contexts or across time. They treat an entire community as though it were a single person with a single all encompassing trait or characteristics. If prejudice describes attitudes and opinions, discrimination refers to actual behavior towards another group or individual. Discrimination can be seen in practices that disqualify members of one group from opportunities open to others, as when a person is refused a job because of their gender or religion. Discrimination can be very hard to prove because it may not be open or explicitly stated. Discriminatory behavior or practices may be presented as motivated by others, more justifiable reasons rather than prejudice. For example, the person who is refused a job because of their caste may be told that they were less qualified than others and that the selection was done purely on merit. Now, let us move to the next point, social exclusion. Social exclusion refers to ways in which individuals may become cut off from full involvement in the wider society. It focuses attention on a broad range of factors that prevent individuals or groups from having opportunities open to the majority of the population. In order to live a full and active life, individuals must not only be able to feed, clothe, and house themselves, but should also have access to essential goods and services such as education, health, transportation, insurance, social security, banking, and even access to the police or judiciary. Social exclusion is not accidental but systematic. It is the result of structural features of society. It is important to note that the social exclusion is involuntary. That is, exclusion is practiced regardless of wishes of those who are excluded. For example, rich people are never found sleeping on the pavement or under bridges like the thousands of homeless poor people in cities and towns. This does not mean that the rich people are being excluded from access to pavements and park benches, because they could certainly gain access if they wanted to, but they choose not to. Social exclusion is sometimes wrongly justified by the same logic. It is sad that the excluded group itself does not wish to participate. The truth is, such an argument is not obvious when exclusion is preventing access to something desirable as different from something clearly undesirable, like sleeping on pavement. Prolonged experience of discriminatory or insulting behavior often produces a reaction on the part of the excluded, who then stop trying for inclusion. For example, upper caste Hindu communities have often denied entry into temples for the lower caste and especially the Dalits. After decades of such treatment, the Dalits may build their own temple or convert to another religion like Buddhism, Christianity, or Islam. After they do so, they may no longer desire to be included in the Hindu temple or religious events. But this does not mean that the social exclusion is not being practiced. The point is that the exclusion occurs regardless of the wishes of the excluded. India, like most societies, has been marked by acute practices of social discrimination and exclusion. At different periods of history, protest movements arose against caste, gender, and religious discrimination. Yet, prejudices remain and often new ones emerge. Thus, legislation alone is unable to transform society or produce lasting social change. A constant social campaign to change the awareness and sensitivity is required to break them. You have already read about the impact of colonialism on Indian society. What discrimination and exclusion mean was brought home to even the most privileged Indian at the hands of the British colonial state. Such experiences were, of course, common to The various socially discriminated groups such as women, Dalit and other oppressed castes and tribes. Faced with the humiliation of colonial rule and stimulously exposed to ideas of democracy and justice, many Indians initiated and participated in a large number of social reform movements. In this chapter, we focus on four such groups which have suffered from serious social inequality and exclusion, namely Dalit or the ex-untouchable caste, Adivasis or communities referred to as tribal women, and the differently abled. We attempt to look at each of their stories of struggle and achievement in the following session. Now let us wind up the session and thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning podcast.